that is the call. That is the purpose for every kid. For every kid, that's your purpose.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You talked about needing more resources. If in an ideal world you went to district and they said we're fully on board, what resources would you want to start? Or do you need more of to support this program?
So the very first thing I think we need is how we are structuring our classes. We're at a critical stage right now, a tipping point, I like to call it, where our kids are trying to navigate conflict via social media and all these other various forms of interaction that did not exist in previous generations. So in an ideal world, I could really have a class that only deals with character, that deals with integrity, that deals with honesty, that deals with those things that we have taken for granted. If you look at, our political figures, who are all very polarizing, when you're looking at the vast differences of wealth within this nation, I can deal with all of that in a class by itself before I even try to go content-wise. So when I'm looking at kids who are coming to this environment who have had extreme traumas, being molested, sexual abuse, substance abuse, I can have a class just like that. So if we know that that's true, why can't we invest in an elective course whereas students get intense training about how to navigate all of those realms? Because we don't get it in English. We do not get it in history. You're not going to get it in your core class. You're not getting it just because you're sitting on the computer and you're in tech literacy. You're not getting it in PE, right? So you're getting maybe a snippet like keep your hands, feet, and obviously yourself that you go to kindergarten. But we're not getting that intense. This is how you treat people. This is how you engage. This is why it's important to keep up on your work. We're not getting that. So for me, an ideal world, if the district said, I'm going to cut you a check, what do you need to happen for this program to be successful? I would say I need to have a full-time person who only manages the Accelerate program. I still need my case carriers, but your full job is to make sure that all of those kids are getting, in Tier 2, are getting all their needs met. Because here's your bottom line. And here's why that program is so exciting for that administration office here. It's not your honors kids that are setting the tone for your school climate. It's these Tier 2 kids. They're setting the tone for your school climate and your school culture. So going back to that idea of looking at the whole student from the different adults in the environment. So if the campus monitors aren't having kids who are disengaged from the school environment tear up the lunch fields, that's a thank you to the Accelerate program. When the office staff is dealing significantly less with kids who are up there for being kicked out of school because they're engaged and they want to be here and they're having those connections and they're understanding the world and navigating those processes that much better, that's a win for that district office. When these kids are graduating, when they're in ninth grade, we have a very high dropout rate for ninth grade, right? When those kids are going to be engaged at a ninth grade campus, at the ninth grade level, and then as they, matriculate through the rest of that process, and when they graduate, that's a win for every single person. So how are you making these gains? I'm making those gains because of how I am working on kids' characters, how they're talking to adults, making sure that other adults on this school campus doing professional development, right? So every staff meeting, I've been blessed because my principal says, hey, you got 15 minutes. Okay, cool. I do a 15-minute PD every single time we meet, and it is incredible. So I'm also developing the adults here. So when you're talking about what this program is bringing to the school environment, you are really talking about something that's affecting every single portion of your school. So your school is going to be more successful because you're targeting those kids and because you are making sure that they want to be here, making sure that they are engaged. And it just changes the whole culture of your school environment. So to me, it's worth the money, right? It's absolutely worth the money. So I would love for them to allow, whether it be me or somebody in a role that I would love to have, where your full job is to just work on targeting tier 2 kiddos, but also as part of that, work on some professional development where you are working with the rest of the staff. Because I do restorative practice as well. I never was trained in restorative justice. All that is what I would learn by myself. Nobody's ever sent me. I literally have made all this up, and I'm pulling from all these. Imagine if I was trained, woo! But nobody's gonna pay for it. I can't afford to go spend $500 and then take off 3 days of work, right, to go to a training. But when I ask, hey, can I do it? We don't have the money. Okay. So everything I've done is done because and then I go back and teach the other accelerated case carriers. So just imagine what we could do if we had something completely dialed in, we had a system, we had our curriculum written down, we're having these conversations. Just imagine what we could do in the school environment. So to me, that would be awesome. They could do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Last few questions here because you gave me a lot of good information. If there was a mental health person on site, how do you imagine they could support you in your role in this process?
My goodness. Especially at the middle school level, that would be fantastic. So big in the news is obviously the Florida shooting just occurred. And part of that conversation is everybody saying we need a SRO or we need a police presence at every school campus. Now, we can fix all that. You give me somebody that is competent in dealing with mental health, and we can eliminate guns or the need for people wanting to have guns on campuses. So much of that are kids who are falling through the cracks. And so much of that are going to be your tier 2 kids. And they do fall through the cracks. And sometimes going back to that self-concept and who they are and how they fit into the world, that becomes very, very critical. And so if we had somebody that was doing that full time, it would be spectacular. It would be spectacular.
How do you imagine they could support the Accelerate program? I
think they could support us by working in conjunction with us. So when we're seeing things that are existing, we can have a referral system. We can have them come in, and because it doesn't have to be some intense counseling session. It could be simple, just how to navigate certain arenas, right? How to navigate conflict, for example. Have them come in, do presentations, have another adult who has a extensive training in mental health, so that way they can see things that are presenting within our kiddos, and they can even bring it to our attention. They can call home. It's just another layer, to me, one of the most critical layers that will help support these kiddos. So as far as Accelerate is concerned, that's all we do. All I do is try to read faces and ask questions, and you try to do preventative things to make sure they're okay. Why do you take your car to the shop to get an oil change? You take it because the little light said, I need an oil change, and if you don't have oil in it, things going to blow up. Okay, so why do I need to go make sure that if I have somebody on site, that if I'm seeing a kid presenting a certain way, I'm going to go do a little check-in before it blows up, right? And those counselors are overwhelmed. I mean, you talk about they got 400 kids each. Come on. It's outrageous. So anything that we could do to help those kids and support their mental capacities and to grow them is wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I've asked a lot of questions, but in thinking about all of this tier 2 students, teacher-student relationships, Accelerate, any of it, is there anything else you think I should know that I didn't ask about?
I think we talked about it all. No, I think we did good. The only thing I would definitely want to emphasize, though, is that culturally relevant pedagogy. I think understanding our teaching practices and how we're relating to kids. And when you hear culture, I hope you just don't hear something along racial lines. I'm talking about the culture of kids. Like, they have their own language, and we cannot be so aloof or so in the dark or so distant from what their experiences are, because it is real to them. And as they're navigating that process,